You're listening to The White Rabbit, conversations on the art of presenting in a rather noisy world. Your hosts are Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. Matt helps leaders of international companies speak, write, and present with confidence. Alper is an author, communications trainer, and a startup investor with a diverse portfolio of companies in Barcelona. If you like this podcast, please share with your friends and colleagues. Now, on to Matt and Alper for today's conversation.
Alper, I've got a question for you.
Go ahead.
And first of all, last week we did Matt's model or Matt's way of looking at the world. And I want to let our listeners know that in a future episode, we'll be doing Alper's model. So if you tuned in this week expecting that, don't die or anything. Don't worry.
He's still trying to find it out. That's why.
We're gonna hit that pretty soon. So, but we're gonna take a break because Matt has a question and he wants to ask this question of Alper. Right. So, Alper, my question is, when somebody sends you an existing slide deck, let's say they're an entrepreneur with a pitch deck, or maybe they're a corporate employee like a supply chain manager or a marketing manager. I don't know, some corporate employee. They send you a pitch deck. Mm-hmm. They send a pitch deck to Alper. Mm-hmm. What are the first 3 or 4 things that you typically do when you're cleaning it up for them?
Just to be clear, we're not talking only about pitch decks for entrepreneurs, but also corporate presentations. Do I understand you correctly?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
If you want to go, if your approach to a pitch deck is completely different than an approach to, a corporate employee presentation, then let me know and we'll split it up. But yeah, if it's cool with you, then let's lump them both together in the same.
That's a good follow-up addition that you made. For the sake of today's episode, I don't think we will be talking about completely different approaches because we're talking about the first things that I would work on a slide deck, right? Whether a pitch deck or a corporate presentation.
So let's say that I am sending I've sent a pitch deck into Alper and I've said, Alper, work your magic on it. And the reason that I ask this is that, we've been working together for some years and I'm always amazed at the changes that you make to stuff. And, when you show me what you're doing behind the scenes, I'm just amazed. And there are some times, like in your book, for example, on that thing about the grid lines on a chart. And then recently you posted something to LinkedIn. It was about how to make a table more visually attractive. And all you did, you just opened a box and clicked the mouse a couple of times and then boom, it's like the world was completely different. So it's like these initial changes that you're making, you don't have to be like a PowerPoint master to know how to do these things, but to an outsider.
Absolutely not, yeah.
Yeah, to an outsider, as simple as they are completely not intuitive. Like I wouldn't even know, as an outsider, that I need to do this. So what are these first things that you do when somebody sends you a pitch or when somebody sends you a slide deck?
Well, first of all, when you look at those slides, the fact that you don't think you need to do those things could eventually lead up to a happier life. I can tell you that much. Because once you start seeing these things, once you start noticing these things, if you don't deal with them, they start coming into your dreams and nightmares, and they become itches that you want scratched so bad. So yeah, but aside from the detail, when I look at a presentation the first time, first of all, there is a special moment when you receive a file from someone. The file is sitting on your desktop or your downloads folder or whatever. You double click on that. And there's a very special moment during those couple of seconds that it takes for the presentation file to open, and you're waiting in front of the computer. Okay, you're bracing for impact, and you're just I'm just thinking, okay, hit me with it. I don't know what I'm going to face, but hit me with it. And then boom, the presentation comes.
So there's this moment of magical discovery, and sometimes what you discover is unpleasant. Sometimes it's beautiful, probably.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you have absolutely no idea what you're going to find under the box that you're opening.
Okay.
So, but like you said in the beginning, there are very standard couple of things that I look at. First of all, I look at whether the slides are crowded, they are filled with text, graphics, charts, etc. What I try to do is put myself in the shoes of the potential audience member who would be delivered this presentation.
Okay.
And yes, I understand that there would be a person actually doing the presentation, using the slides, but I try to put myself in the shoes of the audience and look at the slides from that perspective.
Okay.
If I were to inspect this presentation as an audience member, would I have an easy time understanding following it, or would I have to be paying a lot of attention, which normally they won't? So basically, the very first thing that I would do would be to run the presentation through the filter of simplicity and each slide. Are they easy to understand?
Okay.
Most of the time they're not. Most of the time in the past 10 plus years that I have been doing this, what I receive is really crowded slides with text, image, graphic, etc., with logos and lines which are not serving anything on the slide.
Okay.
So what I need to do is, and usually slides contain more than one idea when they come like this. What I need to do is first find the main idea that is desired to be told with the slide, and then I dissect it into couple of ideas based on a hierarchy. Okay. And what usually happens is that one crowded slide ends up being divided into 3, 4, 5 slides, which support only one idea on each of them. And they are usually accompanied by visuals, data, or other things that justify the idea that remains on the slide.
Let me stop you there for a second. So if I am, let's say that I'm a supply chain manager and I'm sitting there in my cubicle at work and I want to work some of this Alper magic on my slides. So the first thing I should do is I should look at the slide and say, how many ideas are on this slide? If I've got 3 ideas on this slide, then I need to break it down into one idea.
So first of all, and before that, even before putting the hierarchy onto the ideas, I would encourage you to try to justify every single object that is taking place on the slide. Okay. Every single one of them.
Okay.
Your company logo, your title, your text box, your image, or even the page number if you have them. Okay. The first thing that I would encourage you to do would be to justify every single object that is taking place on the slide.
Okay. Let's say that I've got a logo on every slide, and I love it because that's the company I work for. They send me my paycheck a couple times a month, and the marketing department loves it because I'm out there telling everybody what company I'm on or what company I work for. But maybe having that logo isn't serving its purpose. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but for the sake of this podcast, I'm not going to go into details on that because more important than the existence of the logo is the existence of other things. Okay, including the main ideas on the slide. So I would eliminate all redundant objects on the slide and then dissect crowded ideas into simple to understand smaller bits that will own their own slides in the upcoming pages on the presentation. That's how I would start.
Okay, and then what would you do after that?
After that, I would now look at my divided slides and make a decision. Is it crucially important for me to be talking about all of them? Or if I now have 5 slides on my hand out of one slide that we were talking about, or can I actually take 2 of them, put them into the backup slides or to a potential Q&A session at the end of the presentation and actually go with these 3 slides instead of the 5 that I came up with initially.
Okay.
So what I did initially was to take a look at the Krause slide and divide it into multiple slides, one idea per slide.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would try to justify, do I really need 5 of these? Or can I go with 3 and leave 2 maybe to a Q&A session?
Okay. By the way, one thing that strikes me as you're describing this process is that this step is, or at least it seems to be, a long ways from, clean up the table, a long ways from, use fewer grid lines. So before you reach these final formatting steps, you're doing a tremendous amount of work. Is it possible, if I'm like, let's say that, for example, in our example, let's say that I'm a supply chain manager and I'm sitting in my cubicle. Is it possible to, and my presentation, it's due tomorrow, and I've got to send it to my boss tonight for my boss to take a look at it. So it's due tomorrow and I've got to send it to my boss tonight. Is it possible to go through these steps? Are they important enough that I can't skip past these steps?
Well, actually, if you take these steps initially, then you may even end up with less work to do, because instead of redesigning 5 ideas, you will be working on only 3.
Okay.
So you will be. It seems like you would have 2 advantages. The first one being less work to do, and the second one being ending up with an easier to understand slide deck. If you tell me that, hey, I cannot touch any of the ideas at all, okay, then we're talking about something else.
Okay.
But usually you should be able to do that. As a presenter, you should be able to do that.
Okay. So, is what you're talking about, you're basically saying, make sure, or try to focus your message as much as possible. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in few slides and few words as possible. Yeah.
Okay. And you talked about removing stuff. So if I've got, let's say that on one slide, I've got, for example, I've got 3 images. So you are suggesting be really brutal in deciding, do you really need all 3 images? Or maybe you can cut it to 2, or maybe you can cut it to 1, or maybe you can even cut it to 0 images.
Yes.
So that's
like I said in the beginning, everything has to be able to be justified about their existence.
Okay.
Why do you have 3 images on the slide? Why? Well, they serve this purpose. Okay. Can you do it with 2? Yes. Okay, then remove 1.
Okay. So you're going through, you're looking at each slide, you're trying to reduce the ideas that are presented on that slide down to 1. And you are also going through the number of elements, whether they're images or text boxes or whatever, and you're asking each one to justify itself, because hopefully you can cut it down from, say, 3 images down to 1 image. Okay, so those are 2 steps. Focus the message and reduce the elements on your slides. What's the next thing that I should be looking at?
After doing these, then I will start looking at the overall design. Overall design that is taking place on the slides. For example, one of the first things that I would look at would be, are there repeating elements throughout the presentation, like the logo, for example, like the title or something else? And are they properly placed? Because sometimes what you see is a 35-slide presentation.
Okay.
Yes, the company logo is in the same place, but as you advance through the presentation, you see that sometimes the title is this much from the top and then that much from the top, and now it moves a little to the right and then it moves a little to the left. Sometimes they can even change font, size, not color usually, but I would start looking at those kind of structural, like level 0 structural things.
Okay. It's kind of like looking at your presentation as a pitch, or as a, what do they call those? A flip book. Kind of using it, thinking of using it as a flip book and seeing if things move around, because you're looking for some sort of visual consistency. So okay, so we're about out of time, but remind me the first things that I should look at, I being our hypothetical supply chain manager sitting in his cubicle. The first thing that I should look at is one idea per slide. The second thing I should look at is, can I reduce the number of elements on the slide?
Yes.
And the third thing that I should look at is placement consistency.
Yeah, is there overall visual consistency throughout the entire presentation?
Yeah, is there overall, so visual consistency throughout the entire presentation. So these are the first three things I should look at, and I need to be brutal in my execution of those three things. I need to be absolutely brutal, or else I'm going to have to call in Alper. If I can't do the brutality myself, if I can't do the brutality myself,
even
I'm going to call in somebody else to do it.
Even if it took you 2.5 hours, for example, in the morning to design one of the slides, and you suddenly realize that it's not 100% necessary. Yes, unfortunately, it doesn't feel good. I've been there hundreds of times, but you need to hit that delete button and move on.
Excellent. So that about wraps it up for today. We're running out of time, but this brutality that we've been talking about reminds me of a saying that I've heard from the world of writing, which is "kill your darlings," and it's one of my favorite sayings.
Yeah.
Kill your darlings. Go through and be absolutely brutal about killing and removing the things that you love. Maybe you love them, but you owe it to the world to get rid of them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that about wraps it up for today. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alper.
Thank you for the questions. I'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to The White Rabbit with Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. You can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or through your favorite feed.